The day her adoptive family brought home their real daughter, Emily was slapped, discarded, and told to give up her fiancé. In her past life, she begged to stay. This time she smiled and left. With a fake pregnancy, a forged goodbye, and a train ticket to Shenzhen, she wasn't escaping, she was rewriting everything they stole. I never thought I'd live to see 1983 again. But there I was, sitting on the cold tiled floor, cheeks still stinging from my adoptive mother's slap, and the echo of her words ringing in my ears. The engagement was arranged between the Cooper family and the Wood family, not with you, Emily Wood. She said it like I was a stranger in my own life. But the truth was worse than that. I was a placeholder, a shadow of someone they truly loved. The day before, my adoptive parents brought home their real daughter, Sarah. After being missing for 10 years, she returned holding nothing but a jade pendant and a story too convenient to question. My adoptive mother took one look at her and collapsed in sobs, declaring Sarah had come home at last. Back then, back in my first life, I fought for what I thought was mine. I refused to give up my engagement to Zachary Cooper, the boy I grew up beside, the one whose family had arranged our future together the year we were both born. Even after Sarah's return, I held on like a fool. I clung to Zachary, to the dreams I thought we shared, only to die on a hospital bed, bleeding out while Sarah stood beside me, smug and victorious. But this time I smiled through the pain and I said it. Yes. My adoptive mother gasped in joy. Sarah's lips curled into a satisfied smirk. And I, Emily Wood, stood there reborn, knowing exactly how this would all unfold if I played it the same way. Not again. In my past life, Zachary had brought me mooncakes from the barracks, rubbed my shoulders when I studied late into the night, promised we'd build a home together. I had studied like my life depended on it to get into the same university where he was stationed. And I did it, I made it. Then Sarah came back. Said Zachary had always been hers. And I crumbled. I gave up my university spot for her. Gave up my self-worth for the idea of love. Married Zachary out of desperation, only to be abandoned in a house with in-laws who counted the days I didn't conceive. Meanwhile, Sarah took my spot, landed a government job, and reappeared at the hospital when I was in labor, just to whisper, "Emily, I'm having Zachary's child." It broke me. I had planned to divorce him after delivery, but I didn't survive the delivery. Fate had robbed me of everything. But not this time. This time I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't cling. I would leave. "I hope you get what you wish for," I said to Sarah as she leaned in close, eyes sharp with triumph. "You're smarter than you look," she replied with a chuckle like she'd already won. I smiled politely. "Let's just say, I'm finally learning to repay debts." She scoffed. "Debts? You stole my life for 10 years. You think giving back one man is enough?" I said nothing. Arguing with someone so deluded would only waste energy. Let her believe whatever she wanted. Dinner that evening was suffocating. Sarah sat across from me, resting her chin in her hand, a fake sweet smile on her face. "Emily," she said innocently, "why don't you sleep in my room tonight?" I almost laughed. In my previous life she'd done the same thing, claimed she wanted to relive her childhood memories, only to plant mice under my sheets. I glanced at my adoptive mother, waiting for her to speak up. Instead, she chimed in with a thoughtful frown. "That might be a good idea. Sarah should be comfortable her first night home." I matched their smiles. "No need. Mom worked hard to prepare Sarah's room. I couldn't possibly take it." Sarah pouted. "We're sisters. No need to be formal. What's mine is yours." My adoptive mother sighed emotionally. "Sarah, you're so considerate." Then she turned to me. "You can sleep in the living room tonight." "Okay. Of course." I wasn't surprised. "Sure," I replied lightly. "As long as there aren't any mice this time." Their expressions shifted just slightly. Enough for me to see that they remembered. Enough for me to know they thought I was still the fool who'd suffer in silence. But I wasn't that girl anymore. That night, once the house was dark, I stuffed pillows under my blanket and slipped out the window. There were probably still mice in this house. But out there was air. There was movement. There was a future. I walked straight to the Cooper residence. Zachary and I weren't married yet. His mother still liked me, respected me. And I needed her to believe something very specific tonight. The porch light was still on. I knocked. Mrs. Cooper answered, still in her apron, her eyes widening in surprise. "Emily?" What brings you here so late, sweetheart? I lowered my gaze, fiddled shyly with my sleeve like a nervous bride. I was just craving your sauerkraut dumplings, I murmured. He chuckled warmly. Craving them, huh? That's odd. I looked up, cheeks flushed. Ever since Zachary came home on leave last time, I've been obsessed with sour food. Her eyes lit up. She wasn't a fool, she was a woman who wanted a grandchild. You, last time? She asked softly. I nodded once. Fully. And just like that she beamed. Grabbed my hand. Besides dumplings, what else do you want to eat, huh? I'll make it for you. I bit my lip. If I could have a glass of malted milk before bed, that'd be perfect. Earlier that day, Sarah had brought a tin of malted milk as a gift to Mrs. Cooper. I'd seen it. Now I was using it. Say no more, she chirped, hurrying to the kitchen. As she kneaded dough and rolled dumplings, I knew exactly what she was thinking. A child means marriage and marriage means legacy. That night, after downing the warm milk, I curled into Zachary's old room and slept like the dead. Not with guilt. Not with regret. With purpose. This time I wasn't surviving the game. I was rewriting it. Morning sunlight streamed in through the curtains, casting golden rays over the plate of dumplings sitting on the nightstand. I stretched slowly as if I belonged in this bed in this house. Then I ate every dumpling. Chewed thoughtfully. Savored the flavor of strategy. Mrs. Cooper still hadn't woken, so I knocked on her bedroom door. Ma'am. I called softly. I want to go to Zachary's unit. I want to tell him the good news in person. She gasped behind the door and sprang out a moment later in her slippers. Of course you should. But I don't have much cash on hand, so you'll have to take the hard seat tickets. That's fine, I said quickly, knowing full well what she'd do next. She frowned. Absolutely not. Then she shoved a red 50-yuan note into my hand. You're pregnant, sweetheart. You shouldn't suffer like that. Buy yourself some sponge cake for the road. I tucked the money away with a soft, grateful smile. Please don't tell Zachary yet. We haven't filed any paperwork. I want to give him the news myself. She nodded eagerly. Of course. But once you tell him, he should file that marriage application right away. I packed a small tin of dumplings and 2 apples, made sure to leave them on the front doorstep, and crept back into my adoptive family's home through the back door. Inside I was met with chaos. My adoptive mother was sobbing on the sofa, pale and trembling. What happened? I asked, feigning concern. She got scared by a mouse this morning, my adoptive father said with a sigh, handing her a warm towel. A smile tugged at the corners of my lips. A mouse? That's odd. I thought we had pest control come just last week. It's nothing, he muttered. It's gone now. Good, that's good, I said, patting my chest like I was relieved. But inside I sneered. Sarah's old tricks again. I looked at both of them and stepped back. Mom, Dad, I've been thinking. Since Sarah is back, maybe I should move out for a while. My adoptive mother, mid-sniffle, immediately nodded. That's probably for the best. Sarah can't really relax while you're here. Kept my face blank. The real message: you've served your purpose. Now disappear quietly. But my adoptive father squinted. Where would you go? I glanced down, twiddling with the edge of my sleeve. To visit my brother. Michael. He hasn't written in months and I'm worried. Michael wasn't really my brother. He'd been adopted a few years before me and he'd always resented me. He thought I stole his place in the family. When he was sent to the countryside for re-education, I hadn't shed a tear. Still, his name worked as a distraction. Sarah piped up brightly from the hallway, dressed in a crisp blouse like she owned the house. Oh, I'll write him a letter too. We were so close when we were kids. My heart sank just a little. That wasn't true. The last time I mentioned Sarah's name when we were kids, Michael had spat on the ground and said, if I'd known they were bringing her back, I'd have drowned her in the river myself. But I smiled politely. Sure. I'll deliver it myself. I'll get you some food coupons, my adoptive father offered suddenly as if to speed my departure. My adoptive mother reached for my hand, her eyes too bright. Emily, don't blame me for being biased. Sarah suffered for 10 years. I understand, Mom, I whispered, lying through my teeth. Just then Sarah walked in again, looking around. Emily, where's your college acceptance letter? I tilted my head. I put it away. She squinted. Why? I want to show it to Michael. Maybe it'll inspire him to apply next year. Inside I was laughing bitterly. Michael couldn't pass a basic spelling test, let alone reapply. In high school I'd done all his homework for him. He once copied my answers wrong and got a lower score than me on my own work. Still, I needed them to believe I was walking away out of generosity. If he's willing, I said softly, maybe he can take my place at the university. Sarah's voice sharpened. Absolutely not. He's a man. You're a woman. How can he take your place? I can't take his place, I replied calmly. But I can take hers. I looked directly at Sarah and something flickered in her expression. She couldn't tell if I was bluffing or broken. My adoptive mother's eyes lit up. That school is in the same city as Zachary's unit. I smiled faintly and looked down. Then let Sarah have it. I've eaten your food, worn your clothes for 10 years. It's time I repay that. Sarah looked at me like I was a puzzle. You really feel that way? Of course, I murmured. My birth parents never fed me. Just beat me. It wasn't until I came here that I learned what a family is. That wasn't entirely true. My birth father never beat me, but he had sold me for a sack of rice and some government coupons. My adoptive mother stared at me for a long time, trying to decide if I was serious. I sealed the performance with a tear and dropped to my knees. Mom, I've loved Michael since he taught me my first word. I studied so hard all these years just to be worthy of him. The room fell into silence. My adoptive father's hands started to rub together, his eyes gleaming faintly. He remembered what he'd said when he first brought me home, that raising a bride for his son in secret would save them the trouble of dowries. Disgusting. I wiped a tear and stood. It's getting late. I need to catch the bus. Fine, go, my father said gruffly. Stay as long as you want. I picked up my bag, slung my suitcase over one shoulder. Keep Sarah company, I added lightly. She must be overwhelmed. Just as I stepped outside, I heard Sarah mutter, "She's seriously lost her mind." Maybe I had. But I wasn't the one with rats in her sheets and an empty resume. That evening, I picked up the dumplings and apples from the Cooper house and headed straight for the train station. A tiny rural stop that barely connected to the rest of the world. But I didn't care. I just needed out. Yesterday I'd come here in secret and bought my ticket. Everything was planned. I'd transfer at a larger hub station, then head to Shenzhen. Reform was blooming there. Business was booming. I would rebuild from the ground up. In the waiting room I reached into my bag, pulled out my college acceptance letter, and began tearing it into strips. "That's a college acceptance letter," the man next to me said, startled. "You're just going to rip it up like that?" "It's not a good school," I said flatly, shoving the pieces into the trash. "I'm going to aim higher. Tsinghua or Ping University." He laughed, a little too amused. "That's ambitious." "Don't call me a student," I said dryly. "I've already had 3 kids and got married years ago." He leaned closer, squinting. "We went to the same high school, didn't we? You never had any kids." "I'd remember." I looked at him warily. "Emily Wood," he said with a grin. "Prettiest girl in school." I tensed. "I'm Daniel Mang," he added, extending a hand. "Class next to yours." I relaxed just barely. But in the back of my mind I wondered, why was he on this exact train? I leaned back against the cold bench of the rural train station, trying to steady the racing thoughts in my head. I'd torn up the past, literally. My acceptance letter to the university where I'd once chased Zachary was now confetti in a trash bin. The Wood family, their house, their games, they were behind me. And yet I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. "Emily Wood," a voice said beside me, rich with amused familiarity. "Fancy seeing you here." I turned sharply. Daniel Mang. He stood a few feet away, backpack slung over one shoulder, same easy grin he wore in high school. "I switched seats with someone," he added, motioning to the space next to me. "Train's full." I gave a non-committal nod. Of course it was. Just my luck. "You remember me, right, Daniel? Class next to yours." I hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Yeah. I remember." He beamed. "You were always top of the class. Used to blow through test papers like they were bedtime stories." I gave a half smile, but suspicion simmered just beneath my surface. What were the odds? I hadn't seen this boy in years, and suddenly he was showing up at the exact station on the exact route at the exact time? I said nothing. Just kept my bag close and my face polite. The train creaked and lurched forward. I watched the countryside roll by, pretending I didn't notice him sneaking glances at me. Eventually my eyelids grew heavy. It had been a long few days, pretending, plotting, escaping. I leaned against the cold window pane. And somewhere along the way, I fell asleep. When I woke up, my head was resting on something soft, warm. Daniel's shoulder. I blinked rapidly and pulled back. To my horror, I saw a damp spot where my mouth had been. I drooled. Mortified, I wiped my mouth and stood up, darting toward the restroom without a word. Inside, I stared at myself in the mirror. My reflection looked like a mess. Flushed cheeks, tired eyes. A girl who had lived through 2 lives and still wasn't done running. When I got back to my seat, I tried to pretend nothing had happened. Daniel didn't bring it up. He just grinned and pulled out a lunchbox. "You hungry?" My stomach betrayed me with a loud growl. I hadn't eaten since the dumplings and I'd shared those too. "I'm fine," I muttered. He popped the lid and nudged the box toward me. "Braised pork. My grandma's recipe." I hesitated, then gave in. I was too hungry for pride. The meat was tender, the rice fluffy and fragrant. "You made this?" I asked between bites. He laughed. "My grandma did. I'm no chef." "Thanks," I said quietly. He leaned back, arms folded behind his head. "So, what's your plan in Shenzhen?" I glanced at him warily. "Why do you care?" "Because you don't look like someone who ran away without a plan." I sighed. "Work. Save money. Maybe study again later." He nodded slowly. "Me too. Applied to college, but I'm skipping this year. Money's tight." I studied his face. Crisp new jacket. Decent shoes. He didn't look like someone strapped for cash. Still, I wasn't one to pry. And I didn't owe him answers. We rode in silence for a while. But his presence was oddly reassuring. The train was noisy, crowded, sweaty. But Daniel sat there like a calm patch in the storm. When we finally pulled into the outskirts of Shenzhen, I stared out at the unfamiliar skyline. Skyscrapers, neon lights, sprawling markets. It was nothing like the sleepy town I'd come from. This was a place for starting over. Daniel stood beside me on the platform. "First time here?" "Yeah." He grinned. "Come on. I'll show you where to get a cheap room." I froze. "No thanks." He turned surprised. "What?" "I'm not some naive girl, Daniel. I'm not staying in a hotel with you." He held up his hands. "Whoa. Who said anything about with me? I was just offering directions." I narrowed my eyes. "I can figure it out myself." "Sure," he said lightly. "But the hotels around here charge up front. You might want one that lets you stay on credit for a few nights." I didn't move. He sighed. "You can ask for a separate room. Hell, you can ask the front desk to keep me out of the building if you want. I'm just trying to help." I looked at him for a long moment. He didn't leer. Didn't press. Just waited. "Fine," I said finally. "Lead the way." The hotel was modest. Clean enough. And they did allow deferred payment. I booked a tiny room, paid nothing, and locked the door behind me the moment I was inside. The next morning I was up before dawn. Hunger gnawed at me. I hadn't eaten properly in days. I walked through the alleys until I found a street stall selling steamed buns. The smell nearly made me cry. I bought 2 and took a big bite, chewing like a starving animal. The woman behind the cart glanced at me. "You looking for work?" I nodded. "I can wrap buns. Fast and neat." She handed me an apron. "Back here." And just like that, I had a job. I dropped my bag in a dusty corner, washed my hands, and rolled up my sleeves. Dough meat rhythm. My fingers remembered what my mind barely did. 18 pleats, the woman said, watching. I handed her a bun with 18 perfect folds. She smiled. "Meals and lodging included. 10 yuan a month to start. If you do well, I'll raise it." "Deal," I said, my chest loosening for the first time in days. Later that afternoon, I saw Daniel standing outside the stall, peeking in through the glass. I glared. "What are you doing here?" He shrugged. "Buying buns." "You want 20? The stall owner asked him. "All the meat ones," he said with a wink. "Only if she made them." And every day after that he came back. Bought 20 buns. Stood outside. Said nothing. Just watched. He was either persistent or patient. And in my 2 lives I'd never met a man who was both. By the fourth morning of Daniel buying 20 buns and walking away without so much as a bite in front of me, I'd had enough. The boss lady was squinting at me all morning with that teasing grin. I could barely wrap a bun without her muttering something about young love under her breath. After closing shop for the afternoon, I took a deep breath, marched across the street to the hotel, and sure enough, there he was, sitting outside like a stray dog waiting to be fed. Daniel Mang, I snapped, hands on my hips. What is your deal? He blinked up at me. Good afternoon to you too. Why are you buying 20 buns every single day? He tilted his head. Because I like them. You like them, I repeated flatly. He smiled. I'm not eating them all myself. There are 4, sometimes 5 of us. We split them. I folded my arms. You're feeding an army just to keep standing outside my job? He shrugged like it was no big deal. You're the only person I know in this city. Is it that strange that I want to check in? My chest tightened. Part of me wanted to stay angry, but the other part, the quieter, lonelier part, felt seen. I sighed. You ever think of doing something useful? He grinned. I have a job. Oh really? What kind of job? Sales, he said vaguely. Selling what? Possibility, he replied with a wink. I rolled my eyes so hard it gave me a headache. But truthfully, I had time now. The boss lady told me that if the buns didn't sell out in the morning, she'd send me home early. Some days I was done by noon. I had energy. I had skills. And I needed a better income if I ever wanted to stand on my own 2 feet again. Can you take me with you? I asked before I could talk myself out of it. Daniel blinked. Take you where? To whatever job you do. His teasing expression faded. He looked at me seriously for the first time all day. Emily, you can't sell buns forever. I know that, I said softly. But what else can I do? He studied me for a moment, then said, sell clothes. I blinked. What? You're beautiful. You walk into a room and make everything on you look twice as expensive. You belong in a boutique. My cheeks flushed, but I felt something stir in my chest. A forgotten part of me. The girl who once imagined herself walking in heels through city streets with confidence. You really think I could do that? I think you could sell ice to an Eskimo if you smiled while doing it. The corner of my mouth twitched. Come on, he said, already taking my wrist. I'll take you to someone. Before I could argue, he was dragging me across blocks of pavement, through street vendors, past textile trucks, and into a massive wholesale fashion mall. I'd never seen so many colors, fabrics, and mannequins in my life. I felt like a village girl walking into a royal palace. He pulled me into a small boutique nestled between 2 larger stores. The name on the sign was written in elegant cursive. Monica's Wardrobe. Monica. Daniel called out. I brought you that helper you wanted. A woman stepped out from behind a rack, sleek bob haircut, scarlet lipstick, perfectly tailored dress. She looked me over with one glance. She's got a fresh, pretty look, Monica said, her voice crisp. Room and board included. 30 yuan a month. You good with that? Yes. I said too quickly. Yes, of course. My chest fluttered like a caged bird. This was real. This was new. This was freedom. That afternoon I started my first shift. I learned to steam dresses, fold scarves, arrange displays, and pin price tags. Monica was strict but fair. She had taste and she trusted me faster than I expected. By sunset my feet ached, but I was still smiling. Daniel showed up just before we locked up. What are you doing here? I asked, still flushed from the thrill of the day. Helping you move, he said casually, lifting my duffel before I could stop him. Monica said she'd cover lodging. She did. It's the same hotel as before. I frowned. Wait, why are we going back there? He looked at me like I was missing something obvious. Because that hotel belongs to me. I stopped walking. What? Daniel turned, grinning. It's mine. My grandfather built it a few years ago. Left it to me after he passed. I stared at him, stunned. You've been living in your own hotel this whole time? Yep. You let me believe you were just some wanderer buying buns and sleeping cheap? You never asked, he said with a shrug. Besides, would you have believed me if I said I owned a hotel on day one? Probably not. I followed him back in silence, my mind racing. Monica met us at the back of the shop and handed me a set of keys. Here. This is your place now. It was a small room but clean. Warm. Private. The next morning I got up early, steamed dresses and helped Monica set up mannequins. She let me wear one of the new arrival blouses as advertisement. 3 customers asked where I bought it. By the end of the week, Monica raised my pay by 10 yuan. By the end of the month, she gave me the back storage room to turn into a tiny bedroom and moved me in officially. Daniel came by every few days. He never pushed. Never hovered. Just dropped off takeout or asked if I needed anything. And then, 3 months later, Monica opened a second store. And handed it to me. "You're ready," she said. "And I trust you." I stared at her, stunned. "But I don't have money to invest." "I don't need money. I need someone who knows how to run it. I'll handle supplies. You take half the profits." I blinked. "Why are you being so generous?" She smirked. "Because Daniel wouldn't stop bragging about you. And because I like you." I swallowed hard. "Then I'll give it everything I've got." And I did. I moved into the back of the second shop, rolled up my sleeves and hit the ground running. Displays, flyers, customer service, supplier calls. I did it all. Daniel watched me run myself into the ground and said one thing. "Don't push so hard. You don't have to outrun the world." But I did. Because I wasn't just building a future. I was reclaiming the one they stole from me. 6 months passed. My second boutique was thriving, doing even better than Monica's first location. I'd found regulars, set up reliable suppliers, and learned to read customers' needs before they even said a word. Every day I opened the shop myself, styled the mannequins, handled walk-ins and closed up past sunset. Then at night when the city quieted, I studied. I wasn't just working, I was preparing for the college entrance exam again. It was the same test I had once taken in my previous life. I remembered many of the math patterns, the essay prompts, even the trick grammar questions. This time I wasn't just leaning on memory, I was pushing forward. My dream of getting into a top-tier university had never died. It had only been buried. Daniel noticed, of course. He always did. "Don't burn yourself out," he said one evening, leaning against the frame of my shop's door. "You're already doing more than most people would." I looked up from the textbooks spread across the counter. "I can't stop now. I'm finally ahead. I have to keep going." He didn't argue. Just handed me a cup of soy milk and sat with me while I scribbled out equations. He always brought snacks. Sometimes dinner. Sometimes quiet. One evening he pulled out a small set of keys and placed them beside my textbook. "What's this?" I asked. "I bought a place nearby," he said like it was nothing. "It's not huge but it's ours, if you want it to be." I stared at the keys. "Daniel, I'm not asking you to move in right now," he said quickly. "I just wanted you to know. The door's open." I pushed the keys back gently. "Let me get through the exam. Let me earn my place. Then we'll talk about homes." Instead of looking disappointed, he looked relieved. "Good," he said. "Because when we do move in, I want you to feel like it's yours. Not something I gave you." That was Daniel. The boy who watched from the sidelines but always stood close enough to catch me if I tripped. Over time I learned more about him. Monica told me the whole story one night as we stocked the new inventory. "He followed you, you know," she said with a smirk. "Back when you bought your train ticket. He saw you at the station and hopped on the next seat he could find." I froze. "What?" "He didn't know where you were going. Didn't care. Just knew he had to be near you." I swallowed hard, the weight of her words sinking into my chest. I remembered that first encounter. The way he'd smiled. The way he'd stayed close even when I pushed him away. "He's been in love with you since high school," Monica added softly. I didn't answer. I couldn't. How do you respond to someone who made every part of your second life feel real? The exam came faster than expected. I showed up to the testing center with sharpened pencils, a clipboard and a belly full of nerves. Daniel waited for me outside. "You've got this," he said, his hand brushing mine. "I believe in you." His eyes held mine and for once I didn't doubt myself. We both sat the exam that day. When we walked out he was the first to speak. "I think I did okay. Not as good as you but I might pass." I smiled, tired but hopeful. "You'll pass. You're smarter than you think." We were still standing in front of the testing center, in the middle of our shared sense of relief, when a familiar voice called out. "Emily." I froze. Zachary Cooper. He stood on the sidewalk in his military uniform, eyes searching, face stunned. I finally found you, he said, walking toward me quickly. Daniel's arms slipped around my waist before I could even speak. She's not lost, he said calmly. Zachary looked between us. Daniel, you're here too. I'm dating Emily, Daniel said, not breaking eye contact. Is that a problem? Zachary turned to me, his expression confused and wounded. Emily, is that true? I nodded. It is. His voice rose, angrier now. You're carrying my child and dating someone else? I sighed. Zachary, we never did anything. Not really. There is no child. It was an act. He looked stunned. But my mom said. Go talk to your mom, I said coldly. She's good at making up stories. He stepped closer. Why didn't you go to college? Why did you disappear? Because I wanted to stay far away from the Wood family. And the Cooper family. His expression collapsed into hurt. Did I treat you that badly? You were good to me once, I admitted. But once we got married, you never stood up for me. You obeyed your mother like a soldier under command. Every time I asked for help, you stayed silent. Or told me to just endure it. Zachary looked lost. That's not fair. I cut him off. I'm not the same girl you abandoned in that cold house. I'm not your fallback plan. He reached for me, his voice trembling. Emily, please. Don't leave me. I stepped back. If you truly care, don't tell anyone you saw me. You can't mean that. I do. He was still standing there, staring as if I'd slapped him, when Daniel took my hand and gently led me away. Once we turned the corner, he stopped and faced me. You held hands with him? He asked softly. I looked away. Only once. A long time ago. He reached for my hand then, his touch warm and sure. Then I get to hold your hand now. I was about to nod, was already smiling, when he suddenly shouted, Grandpa. An elderly man in a tank top and slippers shuffled over, fanning himself lazily. So this is the girl? He asked, looking me over. Daniel grinned. Isn't her name pretty? Emily Wood. I blushed, nodding politely. Nice to meet you, sir. The man's eyes twinkled. Come home for dinner. Grandma's already cooking. And just like that, I found myself walking hand in hand through a narrow alley, toward a house filled with laughter and life. Inside, Daniel's grandma beamed at me and smacked her thigh. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I'd have cooked something nice. She gave me a red envelope after dinner. I tried to refuse. She insisted. Daniel didn't go to college last year because of you, she said softly. All I ask is that you be good to him. My throat tightened. I looked at Daniel, then back at her. Later that night, as we walked back toward the boutique, I whispered, Don't ever do something like that for me again. No one's worth giving up your dreams for. He smiled gently. It wasn't a sacrifice. Then why did you do it? He stopped walking and looked down at me, eyes fierce with truth. You are my future. And somehow I believed him. That night I couldn't sleep. Daniel's words, you are my future, played in my head on repeat, looping between disbelief and something dangerously close to hope. In my previous life, love had come with conditions. Sacrifice. Silence. Compromise. Zachary had taught me that. His love had been a transaction. Warm when convenient, cold when challenged. But Daniel, he showed up. And kept showing up. He didn't try to fix me. He just stayed close enough to remind me that I wasn't broken. A week after the exam, our results arrived. We had both been accepted, same university, different departments. I cried when I saw the letter. I hadn't realized how deeply I'd been bracing for failure, how much of me still believed I wasn't allowed to win. Daniel picked me up and spun me around like a child. Didn't I tell you? He beamed. I knew you'd make it. You made it too, I pointed out, breathless from laughter. Only because you helped me study. Lies, I said, poking his chest. You're smarter than you let on. He winked. Don't ruin my reputation. That evening we sat on the curb outside Monica's shop, sharing a paper cup of mango pudding. The sun was just beginning to dip behind the buildings, casting everything in gold. Daniel pulled something from his back pocket, a folded sheet of paper. House deed, he said casually. My eyes widened. What? I finished paying off the place. It's in your name now. Daniel, I whispered, shaking my head. You can't. I did. But why? He looked at me then seriously. Because I don't want you to ever question your footing again. Not with me. Not in this city. You have a home now. And no one, not the Woods, not the Coopers, can take that from you. My voice caught in my throat. For a long moment I couldn't speak. I just reached for his hand and held it like a lifeline. But the past always finds its way back. Came in the form of a letter. A plain white envelope with my name scrawled across the front in familiar handwriting. From Zachary. I almost didn't open it. Almost tossed it into the trash. But curiosity, stubborn and quiet, got the better of me. Inside was a single sentence. Your adoptive father is gravely ill. The rest of the note was filled with practical details. Dates, addresses, a time for household registration paperwork. But that single line felt like a hook dragging me back toward a life I'd buried. I stared at it for a long time before I showed it to Daniel. He read it silently, then folded it back up. Do you want to go? I don't know. If it's about closure, I'll go with you. I nodded slowly. Not because I wanted to see them again, but because part of me needed to settle the final thread. Officially sever it. We left our child with Daniel's grandparents for a few days. Boarded the train together. I packed lightly. The town hadn't changed, but I had. The moment we stepped off the train, I felt the heaviness return. The familiar pressure of being unwanted, unchosen, unseen. We took a taxi to the old Wood residence. White mourning cloths hung over the gate. So it was true. He was gone. Their courtyard was smaller than I remembered. The walls more cracked. The air more bitter. Michael Wood, the boy who once shouted that I stole everything, was the one to open the door. You're back, he said with only a faint glance. What happened? I whispered. He gave a cold laugh. The woman they brought home, she wasn't even Sarah. I stared at him, stunned. What? She wasn't your sister, he clarified. You were. The air left my lungs. What do you mean? He leaned against the doorframe. Before you were adopted, Sarah was already gone. Dead probably. Our father went looking for a replacement. Took you in. But you were the original all along. I swayed slightly. That's impossible. It's not, he said flatly. I remember now. Before they brought you back, I had a sister who liked to roast mice in the fireplace. He caught them herself. It wasn't the girl they brought back. Pieces began to click. Memories of Sarah's strangely specific habits, my own unexplained familiarity with the house, the way the Wood parents looked at me like I didn't quite fit, but kept me anyway. Before I could process more, my adoptive mother burst into the hallway, wild-eyed and trembling. You wretched girl, she screamed. Daniel stepped in front of me before I could react. She clawed at the air like she wanted to rip my face off. Michael didn't even flinch. She's gone mad, he said. Ever since the truth came out. We turned to leave, but the past wasn't done talking yet. Zachary was standing at the gate. He looked older. Sadder. Less certain. I didn't know what they were doing to you, he said quietly. I thought you'd gone to stay with Michael. That's what they told me. I stayed silent. When Sarah couldn't take your college spot, he continued, she tried to marry me. My parents refused. I said nothing. He took a breath. She got involved with your adoptive father. They were found together. In bed. My stomach turned. A few weeks ago she told your mother she was pregnant. That explained everything. The knife. The screams. The unraveling. Daniel wrapped his arm around my shoulders and gently steered me away. I didn't look back. As we walked toward the station, I glanced one final time at the broken house I had once tried to build a life inside. I thought of the girl I used to be. The one who begged, who suffered, who believed love meant endurance. Before I left that house all those years ago, I had written a letter to my sister. A letter that told the truth. About them. About me. About what kind of family they really were. Maybe she'd read it. Maybe she hadn't. But now I understood something else. Some people walk into darkness by choice. And those who walk too far eventually seal their own fate. We didn't speak much on the train ride back. Daniel held my hand the whole way, never letting go, even when I curled into the window seat and stared at the blur of fields passing by. The air outside was thick with summer dust and old memories. But inside, with his fingers laced through mine, I felt grounded. Shenzhen welcomed us back with its chaos, its blinking lights, and its endless sense of motion. Our son ran into my arms as soon as we arrived at Daniel's grandparents' home. His tiny hands patted my cheeks like he was making sure I was real. I hugged him tight and whispered that Mama wasn't going anywhere again. Daniel stood a few feet away watching with a soft smile. That night after we put our son to sleep, we sat on the balcony of our new home. The one Daniel had placed in my name without ceremony, without expectations, only certainty. I looked out over the skyline, the glittering buildings that never seemed to sleep. "Do you ever think about it?" I asked softly. "The way things could have gone differently?" He leaned back in the chair beside me. "Sure. I think about the train. About how I almost didn't get on." I smiled faintly. "And now?" He turned to me, eyes full of quiet certainty. "Now I just think about the life we built instead." The boutique business had exploded. Monica's second store, the one I managed, was now outperforming the original. We hired 3 new assistants. Customers asked for me by name. Influencers started wearing our pieces. Eventually, Monica sat me down and said, "We need to talk numbers." I blinked. "Am I behind on something?" She laughed. "No. You're ahead. I want to make you an equal partner." I stared at her. "Monica, you already manage 1 store. You've built our client base. You've increased our turnover by 70%. But I'm already paid more than I deserve." "You're wrong," she said firmly. "You deserve more than I can pay. So I'm giving you half." My throat closed up. No one had ever looked at me and said I deserved anything before. "I don't know what to say," I whispered. "Say yes," she replied. "And tell that stubborn man of yours that I'll be godmother to your next child." I laughed. "Deal." With Daniel's help, we bought a small office space and converted it into a mini design studio. He handled the back end, inventory, orders, expansion. I worked the floor and trained staff. By the time our second child was born, we had 4 stores across the city. And not once, did I hear Daniel say, "Let me handle this." He always asked, "What do you want to do next?" That's how I knew I had healed. Because love didn't make me smaller. It gave me space to grow. One evening, as we closed up the main boutique, Daniel pulled me aside. "There's someone you need to see," he said. I frowned. "What? Who?" He took me by the hand and led me to a quiet corner of the plaza. There, standing nervously by the fountain, was a girl no older than 16. She clutched a worn handbag and stared at me like I was made of glass. "I found this letter addressed to you in our storage," Daniel explained. "Dated last year. I think it got lost behind some shipment boxes. From her." He handed me the envelope. I recognized the handwriting immediately. It was from my birth mother. Inside, the letter was short. "Emily, they told me you were dead. I know I have no right to reach out, but I think of you every day. Your sister passed away last spring. If you ever want to meet, I'll be at the old bus station near West Pier every Saturday at noon. I just want to see your face once more. Even if you don't speak. Your mother." I folded the letter slowly. The girl in front of me shifted awkwardly. "She's your niece," Daniel whispered. "Your sister's daughter." My breath caught. The girl stepped forward and bowed deeply. "I'm sorry for intruding." I reached out and lifted her chin gently. "You're not intruding." She looked so much like Sarah and yet not at all. Her eyes held none of the malice, none of the entitlement. Just fear. And longing. "Come," I said softly. "Let's go eat." I didn't owe the past anything. But I was still allowed to forgive pieces of it. We took her out for noodles that night. Listened to her stories. Let her stay in our guest room. The next morning she followed me to the boutique, eyes wide and full of wonder. "This is yours?" she asked. "Mine and Monica's." She touched the fabric on a mannequin like it was made of gold. I didn't know people like us could live like this. I knelt beside her. People like us can live however we decide. You just have to start. The next few months moved fast. I enrolled her in school. Hired her as a part-time assistant after class. Watched her bloom. I no longer lived as someone's placeholder. I was Emily Hart now. Wife, mother, businesswoman, designer, mentor. And for the first time in 2 lives, I was not afraid of being seen. I never expected to return to the town where my life had once been bartered like loose change. But fate has a strange way of sending invitations. Sometimes in the form of a death and sometimes in the silence that follows it. The boutique was thriving. My partnership with Monica had expanded into a full-fledged brand. Daniel and I had grown our family, our home, our legacy. And the girl who once sold buns on a street corner now ran 4 shops across 3 cities. Then one afternoon a legal notice arrived. It was about my household registration. A clerical error, they said. I had been listed as deceased by the Wood family when I disappeared. To finalize our marriage and secure our children's future paperwork, it had to be amended in person. Back where it all began. Daniel offered to go alone. But I shook my head. Some ghosts need to be buried by hand. We boarded the train quietly. The journey was short but heavy, each station a layer of my past peeling away. When we stepped off, the air was thick with heat and regret. The Wood residence looked like it hadn't been touched since I'd left. The gate creaked when I pushed it open. White mourning cloths still fluttered half-tied, tattered from neglect. My adoptive mother sat in the courtyard, muttering to herself. She didn't recognize me. Or maybe she refused to. Michael Wood came out a moment later. He looked like he hadn't aged a day, which somehow made the whole place feel even more cursed. She never recovered, he said bluntly. After everything. I nodded once. The paperwork? He handed me a file. Signed. Notarized. You'll need to file it with the local office. I tucked it into my bag ready to leave but paused at the threshold. Was it true? I asked softly. What you said, that Sarah wasn't the real daughter? He looked at the woman rocking on the stoop. I thought she was. But then, things stopped adding up. The way she flinched at mice. The story she got wrong. I think she just wanted to believe it so badly she made it true. And my real sister? He hesitated. You. I closed my eyes. I never hated you, you know, he added. I didn't respond. Outside, Daniel was waiting beside the car. I handed him the papers. Let's go. But as we pulled away, someone blocked the road. Zachary Cooper. Still in uniform, though his shoulders sagged under it now. I just want to talk, he said quickly, raising a hand. Daniel didn't move. He didn't open the door. But he didn't drive off either. So I got out. Zachary's eyes softened. You look good, he said. I folded my arms. Don't. I'm not here to beg. I know I lost that right. He hesitated. I need you to know that I'm sorry. For not choosing you. For not fighting for you. For listening to everyone else but you. I stared at him. What past are you even apologizing for? The one where I died giving birth while you were with my sister? Or the one where I had to pretend to be pregnant just to escape? He flinched. I deserve that. No. You deserve what you got. He looked confused. You lost everything, didn't you? I asked, voice even. Your mother's favor. The military promotion. Your clean record. His mouth opened, but I didn't wait. I built my future from the pieces you threw away. I never stopped loving you, he said softly. Then that's your burden to carry, I replied. Not mine. He looked past me toward the car. I know who he is now, he said. Daniel. He was the investor I was courting last year. The one who pulled out last minute. I smiled. That must have stung. He nodded slowly. It did. But it also made sense. Why? Because you never belonged to me. I just borrowed your loyalty until someone worthy of it came along. He stepped back. I hope you're happy, Emily. I am, I said. He left. No more drama. No begging. Just silence. Back in the car, Daniel didn't ask what was said. He just reached for my hand. And I took it. Back in Shenzhen, life resumed. The boutique launched its first in-house line, and I named the signature piece after a woman I used to be, the stand-in. A structured blazer, soft lining, strong shoulders. Worn by women who no longer apologized for taking up space. Daniel built a logistics company out of our garage. By the time our second son was born, he had 20 employees. One night while we were folding laundry, he looked over at me. You know what I love most about us? He asked. What? That we never had to fall in love. We just kept choosing each other. Every day. I smiled. Even when I was cranky and hungover during pregnancy? Especially then. We laughed. A soft, quiet laugh that echoed through our home. The kind of sound you make when you finally live a life you don't have to escape from. I had been the shadow, the placeholder, the forgotten daughter, the disposable fiancé. But not anymore. Now I was Emily Hart. And I had taken back everything they once told me I wasn't allowed to have. The end.